Hey, everybody, welcome back to Inside the Force. Dave Cottingham here with Hannah Burr. Good evening, Hannah.
Good evening. How are you?
Doing good. Doing good, even though it's a little bit late on this week's episode. Both of us had a little busy week last week.
We did. We did.
Yeah, we had some work going on, had an important client with us. But and then we were actually gonna record this weekend, but I actually needed a little bit more time to watch this thing a few more times, and really break this down and think about it because we've been doing reaction videos for Patreon after each one of these episodes of Ahsoka, which have been really fun and really cool to just dive right in before we even. Like, we don't say a word to each other about it. We just start talking about it. Mm-hmm. And, obviously, usually for the show, we have a couple more days to let it process. So, without saying anything, I mean, did it process more for you these last few days? Or?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Okay. All right. So, we'll get into that episode, part 5 of Ahsoka. But first and foremost, obviously, we just mentioned Patreon. Thanks to our patrons. We really, really appreciate the support and everything like that. And, if you want to get on Patreon, go to patreon.com/InsideTheForce. Getting some additional content there. Right now, we're doing a bunch of Force reactions for the show, right away. We're that night, because it is coming out on Tuesday nights, where we're able to watch it.
Yes.
As it gets released, instead of waiting until the next morning or the next night. It's just not. I can't believe they didn't do this earlier. I really can't.
Who knows?
Right? Yeah. So anyway, Patreon, we're doing some content there. So thank you to our patrons and everybody for that support there. The only one bit of news that I'll mention before we get into Ahsoka, I did read that. Even though the writer's strike and all that stuff's still going on, SAG and writer's strike, apparently there is some news that Taika's Star Wars movie is still actually in development.
Yay!
Yeah, so there is a rumor there, even though he wasn't one of the 3 movies that was announced at the last, was it Celebration? I think it was Celebration.
I think so.
It's Filoni's movie and Dawn of the Jedi, New Jedi Order, but it's like Taika's wasn't announced. But apparently his is still going somehow, so who knows?
Maybe
I won't hear nothing. Won't hear nothing until the strike's over.
Oh, yeah. And maybe it was such an early development, they didn't want to announce. Like, it could just be even that the concept of it isn't solidified yet.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I'm curious what era his movie is going to be in.
Could you?
I don't see him doing an Old Republic.
No, but could you imagine?
Movie.
Could you imagine Darth Bane being a dark humor movie?
Oh my gosh, that would. I don't know if I would want that.
Like along almost the same vein as Jojo Rabbit.
I have not seen Jojo Rabbit, so I don't know. But it cannot be along the lines of like Thor: Love and Thunder.
No.
That was way too much.
I am purely thinking like it would be hilarious to see something like Jojo Rabbit, but instead of Nazis, we're talking Sith. Like that would be funny and dark.
Okay, well now you got me curious because that means I'll probably have to go watch that then. Okay.
It's one of my favorite movies. I'm not gonna lie. I think it's a very cleverly made movie that deals with the subject of the Holocaust, of Nazis, of all of that. I think it's
interesting. It takes that and makes it funny.
At first you feel a little bad for laughing, but then you realize, okay, that's the vein of this movie. I'm supposed to laugh. And anybody who's seen Jojo Rabbit, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, anything with Taika, yeah, I think you're supposed to laugh.
And
Yes.
Taika plays Hitler, which I think is hilarious.
Oh my
Wait,
gosh. Yeah.
I didn't misspeak, right? He actually does play.
I got it. Okay. I definitely got to see it now. Was that like up for awards?
It was.
I feel like it was.
I
Yeah.
think it won some.
Like a Golden Globe or something.
I think it won an Oscar. It won an Oscar.
It won an Oscar for what?
I'll look that up in a second, but I just need to confirm. Yep, Taika is Adolf Hitler.
Wow. Okay.
It won an Oscar for. I love it. We're talking about World War II on a Star Wars podcast.
Yeah, I know, right? Hey. Hey, Star Wars got a lot of inspiration from the wars, right? The Nazis and the aerial battles.
It won for Best Adapted Screenplay.
Screenplay. I was about to say maybe screenplay or something.
For 2020. Yeah. It was nominated for Best Motion Picture, nominee for Best Performance by an Actress in a Supporting Role, Scarlett Johansson, nominee for Best Achievement in Costume Design and Production Design, and Film Editing. So it was nominated for all of those, but it won Best Adapted Screenplay. And Taika won that award. So
yeah, okay. So he's an Oscar winner. I don't think I even knew he was an Oscar winner. Okay, well, that's Taika could be doing a Star Wars movie. We'll see.
That would be great.
Well, let's talk about part 5, Shadow Warrior.
All right.
Which I'm not sure I know what that was referencing. Shadow Warrior.
I think I do.
Okay. What do you think?
Okay. So, there's a whole idea that a Padawan will gain all the knowledge of their master. It's a bond it's supposed to pass on. Shadow is someone who sticks very close to you. So I think it's the whole idea of how, and Anakin made it clear in their conversation between Anakin and Ahsoka. He says, when she's like, I thought Jedi were supposed to be keepers of the peace. He's like, you have to adapt to times. Now I have to train you to be a warrior instead. So Warrior Shadow is Ahsoka feeling like she's in Anakin's shadow. Part of the reason why Ahsoka, and someone on social media said this, and it makes me feel a whole lot better as to why she plays Ahsoka so stoic, is because she's so deathly afraid. She's so afraid that she's going to become like Anakin. And that could be a huge reason. True. That could be a huge reason why she abandoned Sabine. That could be why their training stopped. Because if we also think about it in Rebels, she didn't know Anakin was Vader until that episode in Rebels.
Correct.
So that's such a huge moment for her. That's why we still got snarky Ahsoka up until that point, because all of a sudden all of her fears have been realized. And it's still the whole idea of what does it mean to truly live? And she doesn't have to live in fear anymore.
Yes. Okay.
So I think that's Warrior Shadow, is that she's no longer in the shadow of Anakin. She's been reborn into a new Jedi. So that's why I think it's called Warrior Shadow.
Okay. I can get along with that. That's good.
Unless you have a better idea.
No, actually, I really don't, because I think I really don't. I mean, I think at first I was thinking, are they referencing Anakin as a shadow warrior for some reason? But I don't know why that would be. But that would make sense that she's in his shadow. I do like that a lot. So I think that's probably the way. Probably what she was, or Filoni was thinking.
Yeah.
No, very good. Very good. Okay. Let's see. So now we did a reaction video. So now we have a few days, and the next episode's coming out today. I mean, I'm putting this out Tuesday morning. Tonight is the new episode. What is anything changed from your reaction over the last few days? How have you felt better about this episode? Worse? About the same? What do you think?
I've personally felt a whole lot better about this episode. I think, and this was something that I was talking with Zach about when he finally saw it, my husband, is that I think recently in Star Wars, we're so used to things being thrown in our face. We're not really used to a lot of subtle things. And if something's subtle, we're thinking too hard. But the more that I thought about this episode, the more I chewed on it, the more that I loved the beauty in its subtle messages. And I love the fact that we were able to get that nostalgia moment of the Clone Wars. We got Rex, we got Anakin, we got Ahsoka. I mean, come on.
Right.
But
we got the Clone Wars.
We got the Clone Wars, but it wasn't it wasn't beaten to death. Like, I feel like sometimes with the show Obi-Wan, I feel like the fan service was a little beaten to death, in my opinion. This, I feel like, was the perfect dosage. Now, don't get me wrong. I wish we got more Hayden. I still wish
he was in it a lot, though. He was in it a lot.
He was in it a lot, which I loved. I wanted more of him.
Yeah.
But yeah, the more I thought about it, and when I watched it again, I was like, yeah, this might be one of the greatest episodes of Star Wars in modern history.
I agree with that. I think it by far is the best episode of Star Wars we've ever gotten. Which is saying a lot because last week's was pretty dang good too.
Oh, last week was great as well. Yeah.
Right? So Filoni's on a roll right now. I think, we talked it through because after my first viewing of it, when we talked and reacted to it, at that time, I was actually a little, not confused, but I was unsure of how I actually felt about this episode.
Completely agree.
Only because the lesson part kind of confused me. Like, what was the lesson? And I felt like that part, like the part where the realization of her, just taking the red saber from him, holding it to his neck, and then throwing it away. And then all of a sudden, all we got after that was Anakin kind of looking down and back up as his normal self. It says, "There's still hope for you." And then that was it. I kind of wanted more there. I kind of wanted more of them just realizing what each other has done, what each of them has done for each other. There was a moment there that you can really sink into the emotion. Now, maybe there wasn't time, or maybe Filoni didn't feel like it was the right thing to do there, but I felt like that was a little rushed, and that's why it made me think, like, what was the point of all of that? Now, you, thankfully, when we did the reaction, you talked me through a lot of that. I think you had a great explanation regarding the lesson, which is, like you just said, the fear part, that you can't fight in fear. You have to fight just to fight to live. And I think the lesson really was about Ahsoka. The path she was going was leading to the dark side. Now, get this scenario, because this is what I came up with over the weekend, and I mentioned this on Martin's podcast, on the Mandalore podcast last night. I actually think that what Filoni may be giving us in these scenes with Anakin, it could be Ahsoka's training towards being part of the cosmic force when she's gone, becoming a Force ghost. Because if you think back to the episodes of Yoda at the end of season 6 of the Clone Wars, where he's going through that process, right? He faces his dark side self. And he has to prove to the priestesses that he is not going to turn, that he would not turn, that he can hold off his emotion, that he can convince them that he will make the right decisions. And to me, this ends up almost being very similar to that, right?
Absolutely, because we know that just because of the book Shadow of the Sith, we do know that Anakin had some form of training with that.
Right.
So, well, that brings up a question. Does Ahsoka die?
I don't know if she dies in this series.
Or
I obviously think she dies eventually.
Yeah, like that's what I'm asking. And I'm not talking about eventually after the series or the movie or whatever. I'm talking about either this season or next season of Ahsoka, if there's another season, or if we're jumping straight to the movie, is she going to die?
I think I would be highly surprised if Filoni would ever let anybody ever kill her off other than himself.
Yeah.
So at some point, you know what I mean? At some point he's going to have to close that character's chapter. I think.
Yeah.
You know, I think a part of me feels like that's what he meant to do with Maul, even though Maul was George's creation, but I don't think he wanted anybody else to, in George's respect, just keep carrying Maul's story out for just to have it, right?
Right.
You had to put a close to that character at some point. Now you can do stuff before he dies, but at this point when he fights Obi-Wan, he's dead. There's no Maul after that. So I just can't imagine anybody doing a story with Ahsoka, right? And possibly killing her off without Filoni's approval. That would be crazy.
That would be crazy. But yeah.
So part of me, I just thought about. Now let's go back to, and because honestly, I can't remember if we where we concluded about this when we were doing our reaction. But where are you? Do you think this is the world between worlds now, or is this something else?
No, I mean, the thing is that with you saying that, the only reason why I wonder if it's not that is because Anakin isn't in ghost form. Now, granted, I don't remember with Yoda's experience if they were Force ghosts or if they were more realistic.
The priestesses, they were, well, you remember where he went was like, it was very Force centric. Like you can't just get there. I think you have to be drawn there and you have to be, so it's not a normal place where he was.
Right. So
they were part of the cosmic force too. I don't think they were actual beings.
Yeah. So I guess maybe I don't know. I don't know if this is her subconscious. I honestly do believe that part of it is the Force, whether it's Anakin helping the Force in Ahsoka, if that makes sense, and influencing it versus actually physically being in her consciousness. But that does bring. Well, I won't bring up that point yet. I don't know. I still am undecided, but I wonder if it really matters. You know what I mean? I wonder if it
matters if it was real or not.
Sorry?
If it matters if it was real or not?
Yeah. Because all that matters is that it was real to Ahsoka.
Very true. Yes. Very true. I don't think the only reason now, again, watching after a couple times, the only reason I believe that she went somewhere, I don't believe she went to the world between worlds, the one we saw in Rebels.
Right.
I think the setting is just similar because I think that's just familiar to her. I do think she went somewhere, though, because she is dying.
Yes.
And the only reason I think that it was that it was truly Anakin there is because Jason could hear the lightsabers.
Yes.
Right? He can hear them fighting in the Force somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So whether or not it was somewhere near that area or it was somewhere in the cosmic force out in the galaxy somewhere, I don't know. But it was within the Force. And I think Ahsoka's consciousness and Anakin's consciousness or whatever, I think that they're there. Now, the reason why I don't believe it was the main reason too, I don't believe it was a world between worlds, is because we just never, it was never, to me, it was never insinuated that you can basically transport your consciousness into your younger self.
Yeah.
Right? So that part, it was part of Anakin reliving the lessons that he's given her over the years. So, yeah, so I think, but I think you're right. I think it could be interpreted as her, experiencing, I don't know how to say it, like, almost, a subconscious event in her life while she's trying to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And she relives some things that she's experienced before. Because both of these scenes were experiences that she, went through. They didn't happen exactly like this, obviously, because it was a little different. But anyway, I think like you said, though, it's pretty incredible to see that in live action. Just incredible.
It was spectacular. It really, really was. And who knew that Anakin would get what he always wanted? And, Palpatine held up his end of the bargain. Anakin was able to save those he loved. From dying.
That is interesting. Wow. That is interesting. I like that.
It's the whole yin and yang of the Force, which, yeah, when I text that, Zach also said, so this kind of confirms that Anakin is the will of the Force itself. And I was like, excuse me, what? He's like, yeah, he was born of the Force. He was light and dark. And after he, moved on, he's this perfect yin and yang of the Force. He is the will of the Force itself. And it's just like,
yeah.
What?
I mean, he is the chosen one, right?
He's the will of the Force.
Yeah.
That's what this episode proved.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Now, I will say, too, because I know a lot of people have been reacting and mentioning their reactions, emotional reactions to this reunion now, right? Seeing them together, which is unbelievable. It is pretty crazy that we got these two in live action. But for me, I will say that the most emotional scene that I got, to me, and it still gets me I've seen this 4 times and it gets me every time, when she sits down next to that clone trooper and puts her hand on him and he reaches over. I mean, for one, it's you can feel. I mean, Ariana Greenblatt, I think is her name, that played the young Ahsoka. What an incredible performance!
Wow,
that this young girl did. And I see it online. I'm seeing people raving about her, which is fantastic because she deserves it. Now she's a very experienced actor. If people don't remember her, she was young Gamora in Infinity War. She was Adam Driver's daughter in 65, this movie that just came out last year, or earlier this year, actually. So she's been around. She's got some big credits. She's not a newbie.
Barbie movie.
Oh yeah, she was in the Barbie movie as well. You're right. So she's big time. And you can tell she's going to be big time for a long time because this girl knocked it out of the park. But yeah, you can just feel, because here's the thing. The Battle of Ryloth is one of the first battles we see in the first season of the Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
So this is early on in the series. The war has got, 3 more years to go. But when she sits down, because this is older Ahsoka, right? That's sitting down and putting her hand. So you can see in her face that it wasn't this new thing she's experiencing. She remembers, like she said, all the soldiers that they've lost. And man, to me, it was very heart-wrenching. It was pretty emotional.
I think that's just also, I feel like, and we talked about this in the reaction video too, you couldn't do the Clone Wars in live action and expect the same result as the animated Clone Wars. You just couldn't. And the Clone Wars was, no, it's not a kid's show, but it's kid friendly in the sense of, yes, there's war, but you're not seeing the horrors of it. You can't really, I mean, I'm sure you could, but it would look very fake and very cheesy if you tried to translate that directly as live action. I think they did a very good job helping us remember that the Clone Wars were, it was a war.
Right.
It wasn't, not that the Clone Wars were happy, but you definitely didn't feel the weight of the war like you did in this episode. And I think it just was a nice, solid reminder. And I think they did it very, very well without it being too heavy.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think it's all summed up in that one moment too. And I think it's a reminder as well as how much, these weren't just soldiers. They were family to Ahsoka and Anakin, especially Ahsoka. She saw them as her brothers. I think she even called Rex her brother once. It sums it up right there. That, it was a huge burden to put on the other thing we tend to forget, Ahsoka's a teenager. You're putting all of this on a teenager.
And a young teenager.
Yes.
14. I think she's 14 years old.
14. That's a lot to go through for a 14-year-old.
Yes.
So I think it just helps us remember that, she's been through it.
She has. Yeah, she has. The only thing that would have, even though the scene was perfect, the only thing that would have made that scene better if it was actually Tamara Morrison.
I would have loved that. I wanted that too. I'm like, is it Tamara? Oh, his face is wrapped. Never mind.
Yes. I wanted, if that was him, man, I would have lost it.
I mean, he was on set.
I guess. I don't know. They use his voice. We don't know if he was technically in this costume or not.
Well, weren't there rumors about him being on set?
Well, that means we could see an older Rex, though.
Ooh.
Right? That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking we might see an older Rex.
Oh, I would die.
Yeah, I would too. Like the big white beard. Don't you think that's got to happen? I mean, how would Filoni not do that?
And where the heck is Zeb?
Yeah,
where's Zeb?
I don't know. Yeah.
So is Zeb gonna fly in with Rex?
Yeah, maybe they come into the when the New Republic finally gets it together. Okay, we got to talk briefly, real quick, about a little bit. You touched on a little bit about Hayden. We saw him come back in Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he did an episode 2 flashback, but mainly he was Darth Vader and Obi-Wan, right? He was in the actual suit, and he fought Obi-Wan a couple times in that series. But this is episode 3, Anakin. And I thought I thought, for one, he fell right back into it. I thought he was fantastic talking to her. But then all of a sudden, when you do this first flashback to the Clone Wars, and he's an Anakin that he never played before. You know, he played an Anakin at the beginning of the Clone Wars in episode 2, and then the end in episode 3, but he was not Anakin during the Clone Wars series. And I thought that he fell right into, I mean, that scene, the part where he's talking about, like, she's like, I can't believe you're joking. You're like, why not? You know, that, I felt like that was straight out of the Clone Wars. And I felt like these two characters, even though they had never acted together, you know, it's one thing because, you know, Hayden and Rosario actually knew each other. Apparently, they actually took acting classes together a long time ago. But, you know, this Ariana and Hayden had not acted together, but it felt like you've seen them in the Clone Wars for 7 years. It's pretty crazy. I don't know if you felt that way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've always been a fan of Hayden Christensen. Even when I first saw the prequels, I've always been a huge fan of him. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's because, you know, you and I grew up in the performance world, the acting world. We know that you can't really judge a person's performance on the screen in one thing, because there are a lot of things that could happen. It could be that the editor picked the wrong take, or it could be the direction wasn't good. But I've always been the biggest Hayden Christensen fan. I've always loved the way that he portrayed Anakin. And to see him, I was disappointed that he didn't do the voice of Anakin in the Clone Wars. And I know there are reasons for that. But to see him, it's like, of course he nailed it. Of course that's the Anakin that we've seen. Like, come on. So I have nothing but good things to say about Hayden Christensen's performance as Anakin. It felt natural. It felt like there was such a strong continuity and cohesion between everything that it was spectacular.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, agreed. Now, what about the only negativity that I've actually seen, really the only truly negativity I've actually seen about this episode was that a couple comments I saw couldn't get past the fact that there was a lot of fog and a lot of things that were hiding the scenery, right? Because they were saying, oh, they spent all this money on Hayden and all this de-aging him and things like that they didn't have the budget to fill out. Like, I want to see Ryloth. I want to see Mandalore.
Why do you need to see that?
Yeah, and I get it. I get it that they want that. The problem is that she's not actually at these places.
I also think the thing is, it doesn't matter where she is. I think, like, the thing is, if you were to do that, then you would spend your entire time looking at the background than you would being focused on the subtlety of the moments happening right then and there. That's so for me, I feel like the fog actually, was it a help with budget? Maybe. But to me, it helped me focus on those moments more. I wasn't distracted by, I didn't need to see Mandalore. I saw it in the Clone Wars already. All I needed to see was a Mandalorian wearing the Maul helmet and one of the clone troopers wearing Ahsoka's helmet, and I immediately knew where we were. I didn't need to see Mandalore. I understand the need for that, but I also think it's silly because that's not what's important in the moment.
Right. Yeah.
And it would be too distracting. We're already distracted by the fact that we're seeing Rex and we're seeing Anakin in Clone War form and Ahsoka in Clone War form. Add more to that, and all of a sudden you're losing the heart of what's happening. You're losing what's important. And that's my 2 cents. I don't know if you feel the same way or not, but
yeah, it didn't bother me at all. I mean, I think look, there's especially you and I, when I think we understand. Yeah, I think a lot of people do. Obviously, I'm not gonna say we're special in that way, but I think we understand. Budgets exist, and you only have so much to spend, and you got to figure out how to do that. It's not unlimited. I'm sure Filoni would love to do all kinds of different stuff that he just can't afford to do. You have to work within the parameters of what you have, and if it's unfortunate if people think that hinders what the enjoyment of a story and the acting of these characters. I think, yeah, I can get past that because I'm more focused, like you. I'm more focused on what they're saying. I'm more focused on how these characters are interacting and what the story is and how that's going. I don't need, I just don't need that personally.
also, if you didn't have the fog, I think you would have a very difficult time having a fluid continuity transition from one war to another. I think it'd just be made more difficult. But also, you would lose an amazing shot of Anakin all of a sudden flashing into Vader and then flashing back. Yeah. It would not look as cinematically beautiful as it did.
Yeah, very true. No, it's fine. It looks great. We didn't really even talk about Hera and all that, but that's kind of, so let's, I guess, so anyway, Ahsoka comes back. Did you sense that she's a different person now? Absolutely.
I mean, we see that in symbolically in her clothing, the way she's even carrying herself. She was there was a baptismal thing that happened. She was reborn. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
oh, man, that Purgle is massive. That she. Yeah.
That was so cool. I know some people are like, well, why didn't they think about traveling with space whales before? Like, da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like,
well, how do we know people didn't?
I know. How do we know people didn't? And also, when Harris said that, you're also talking about a time where there weren't a lot of Jedi, not a lot of Jedi. So something that you get from the novels, and I believe this was in Master and Apprentice, something that's made crystal clear is that specific Jedi have specific gifts. Some Jedi are very good at animal handling, at creating a force bond with a creature immediately and communicating. Some are not good at this.
Right.
And but that's the gift that you're focusing on. So this happens to be something that maybe Ahsoka isn't naturally good in, but she's going to give it a shot anyway. Or maybe it's something that she's good with and she just never knew. So, it could simply just be that. The fact that the Jedi that have tried to do it before failed on their animal handling checks.
Yeah.
Rolled a nat 1 instead of a nat 20. So, that was just so cool, though. That was such a creative idea. But I mean, I really hope Hera doesn't get suspended permanently. But I know she'd be willing to in order to ensure that Thrawn does not return. I mean, I also think we do have to give credit to Mon Mothma, who clearly, we also have to note that Leia is mentioned in this. But let's give credit to Mon Mothma, who clearly believes Hera and clearly wants to support Hera, but she is standing firm in the fact that this is a republic. She will not be a dictator. She'll not be another emperor. She's like, look, my hands are literally tied. I am not going to overrule this because we are a baby republic. We have to show the people that we're different. So
that's right.
I think we need to give Mon Mothma more credit there as well.
Yeah, as much as I didn't want to, have her go against Hera in that sense, she's right. I mean, she is listening to the Senate and the people. I mean, she's running it how it used to run. So, and she's not being, hopefully she's not being corrupted by, the bureaucrats that the previous chancellors were. I don't think she will, but
she's too smart for that.
Agreed. So, okay, well.
And then Jason, like, is Ahsoka going to train Jason? Is Jason going to go train off with Luke? Sorry, like you could probably spend 3 Inside the Force episodes talking about this single episode.
Yes. No, there's a lot there. I think Jason is an interesting because it felt like Hera was kind of shielding him a little bit from. At least I got that sense she when Ahsoka came out and it seemed like she was intrigued by how Jason helped find her. Hera's like, hey, go check out the ship with Captain Teva, like get away, don't worry about that stuff. I don't know. I just felt like she was shielding him a little bit, but she has to acknowledge the fact that he did. Yeah. He's the one that found Ahsoka basically.
I think part of it is, she lost her husband. She lost Ezra. Both were Force sensitive. She doesn't want to lose her son, but she's not going to shield him from it either. Like, she's not going to. But I wonder if another part of it is she's a general. And once again, as we've discussed before, the Republic is very wary of Jedi. Because a lot of them are still living in the fact that the Jedi overthrew or tried to overthrow the Chancellor. So I just wonder if that's her way of protecting Jason. She's not going to keep him locked away, but at the same time, she doesn't want to yet have him go down this Jedi path.
Right. Well, you mentioned Leia, how she was mentioned. I know we're kind of in this themed month era of Inside the Force right now. We're kind of talking about the New Republic, and she is the New Republic.
Yes.
I was trying to look it up. I'm not sure because he says Senator Organa. I'm not sure. I was even looking it up in Bloodline, which she's still a senator at that point because they were trying to entice her to become chancellor, actually, because Mothma's kind of run her way out. I don't know if we know, because I can't find it, as a senator, who she's representing. Because Alderaan obviously doesn't exist. So I'm still curious. I was still curious where she's a senator of. And I don't know if they ever mentioned it in Bloodline exactly, because all it mentions is that she's part of the populace, right? The populace party. Because there's centrists, I think, and then the populace are the two kind of parties in the Republic. But I could not find it, and I couldn't remember if they mentioned it in Bloodline, but I'm not sure they do. So.
All right. Hang on. I'm Googling it now. In the book Star Wars, Senator New Republic. Yeah, given the destruction. So Apparently,
I haven't really deep dive in any of the books I have, but
the Alderaan sector.
oh, the sector. Oh,
Okay, it seems like it's a misconception that senators exclusively represent planets. Senators can represent either planets or sectors based on
no,
factors
I
as
get that. Yeah,
population.
that's true. So there's definitely other planets in the Alderaan system. So yeah, that would
Oh,
make sense.
oh, Amidala represented the Chamel sector. So yeah, that would make sense. So she would be the Alderaan sector.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
There you go.
So there's other planets there other people that she represents, even though Alderaan's gone. Okay,
Well,
perfect. That makes sense.
the decrease in population would definitely lean more towards a sector representation.
Yeah, probably.
Too
Not
soon?
sure how many other. Not sure how many other. No, Alderaan's been gone for 40 years, so I think we're okay. 45
So,
years actually, I think.
so not too soon.
Not too soon. Yeah. But that was interesting, yeah, because I don't think by any means that we're gonna see Leia at all.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a good mention.
Yeah, it was a nice little tip of the hat.
Nice little tip of the hat. Okay, anything else on this part 5?
Oh, I'm sure there's more, but I don't think you want this podcast to end up being like 3 hours long.
Yeah. No, we do that enough on the Mandalore podcast. No, that's those were our thoughts. Let's see. Release schedule. As you guys know, Crimson Climb is the next novel that comes out October 10th. High Republic, the third phase, kicks off here November 14th. With the Eye of Darkness, Tales of Enlightenment comes out December 5th, and then Defy the Storm March 12th. Let's see, this past week you guys got Darth Vader number 38 and Obi-Wan Kenobi number 1, which is the comic adaptation of the series. And I've heard reviews that actually it's a really good adaptation, so check that out. Bounty Hunters 38 and Dark Droids D Squad number 1 comes out this week, September 20th, and next week to finish out September, Dr. Aphra 36 and The Mandalorian Season 2, number 4. Okay, comments. Let's see. Some of you guys had some comments here on our last show. Jojo on YouTube says, such a mind-blowing episode. I loved every second of it. Now remember, this is part 4, not part 5. I wasn't disappointed about the reveal, even though I wanted them to be Barriss. He's talking about Marak. Speculation is just part of the joy. The cast is big enough already. Anyways, great discussion, guys. Keep it up. Let's see. Amanda says, I think it's in Bloodlines that Leia says they are demilitarizing because the New Republic wants to prevent another Palpatine from having that much power again. In fact, a lot of what the New Republic does seems to be in an attempt to be the opposite of anything the Empire did, like a rubber band that snapped back too far. It sits weird with me how they show the New Republic failing, though. The Empire would get rid of their dissenters, so the New Republic tries to rehabilitate them, but the system sucks. Maybe it's not about the New Republic having the moral high ground, but that a Galactic Republic is just too big to be a truly good force. I don't know. I'm just lost on the whole thing failing like they have it. Good point.
That is an excellent point. Maybe it is simply it's just too big.
It very well could be. I mean, I've always, in a sense, wondered how you govern thousands and thousands of systems out there.
I mean, you look at that Senate hall and you're like, holy smokes.
Yes.
Like, there's no way you can help all of those like, there's just no way.
Well, I think at the height of everything, that's what the Jedi was for, right? They were keepers of the peace.
They would go on diplomatic missions and things like that, and that was to keep the peace. Now you don't have any Jedi, so who's helping keep the peace?
Exactly. Nobody. That's why I was always like, come on, Luke, let's get this thing together. And anyway, Thrawn Addict says, this was a fantastic episode of Star Wars. All the action scenes and lightsaber scenes were great, and I love Baylan, and I think he is stealing the show so far. He is not your typical villain and seems to have many layers to his character, and hope we learn more about him and his apprentice going forward. I actually quite liked Marak, just being a Night Sister conjured spirit. I think if it was some big reveal, it would take away from the other big moments in the episode and series. I agree.
Yeah, especially after seeing episode 5, that really would have been too much.
Right.
That would have been too much. And I love the idea of us learning more about Baylan. In fact, new theory about Baylan. His whole thing is just a cult from the Sith, very similar to the Knights of Ren. The Knights of Ren aren't necessarily rooted in Sith. They're just a cult inspired by the Sith. So it could be he's doing something similar.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. That's a good analogy.
Because that's the thing, is that people tend to forget that Kylo Ren isn't technically a Sith. He's a Knight of Ren.
He's a Knight of Ren, yes. Yeah.
If you were to be technical.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird.
Yeah. It's kind of weird. It's very much the Sith in the sense that there's only two and they're controlling, trying to take control of the galaxy, but and they're all kind of puppets of what Palpatine's doing in the end.
Exactly.
We found out. Anyway, Thrawn goes on and says, seeing Anakin was a goosebump moment for me and cannot wait to see the next episode. I know a lot of people think he might be an evil version of Anakin because of the Vader lightsaber he has on him and the music right at the end. But hope it's not. I would really love to see a nice, genuine moment or whole episode between them. I don't know how Ahsoka got to the world between worlds, but hope they explain more about it in the next episode. People who haven't seen Rebels must be more confused by that last scene. I lastly thought Sabine's choice made sense that she would choose Ezra over stopping Thrawn's return. They did a good job setting it up for the first 3 episodes, with Sabine feeling a bit lost and alone. Cannot wait until next week. Still have a lot more to go with more Anakin, and we haven't even seen Thrawn yet. Thanks again, David and Hannah. May the Force be with you.
Well, I hope that episode made you happy.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Looking forward to what he says about this last episode.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so our newest patron, Darth S&M, commented on our Patreon feed here. He says 10 out of 10. Oh, this is I'm jumping ahead. This is part 5, actually.
Yeah. Reaction.
Why not?
It's the reaction.
It's reaction. He's commenting to our reaction. 10 out of 10. No, 100 out of 100. Live action Clone Wars Anakin in the battle garb was so cool. The subtle aging of Anakin while the timeline progressed was a nice touch. The lightsaber duels progressed along with the timeline. Fighting styles changed along with the colors. My favorite part of the Ahsoka and Anakin scenes, Sith Anakin. He got so aggressive with his strikes. I could feel the power of the dark side, the anger flowing through him. As so many fans had joked, we got Ahsoka the White in this episode. There was a definitive shift in Ahsoka's demeanor after her visions with Anakin. I thought it showed her previous mood was in part due to her unresolved feelings about Anakin. I thought that was a great character development. She looked really happy at the end of the episode. She was literally in the world between worlds, between life and death. I mean, it was real. Jason and Hera heard the lightsaber battles between Ahsoka and Anakin. because she was in the water, but had to be more than a vision. It speaks to what Filoni was saying. There's more to this place than just time and space. It can be reached via more than a portal, it seems. That's the part I don't know we know about, if whether or not you can get there without a portal. So we call her Ahsoka Jonah now. The Bible Jonah references, not the scoffed Jonas brothers. Has Ahsoka always had the power of Force to touch objects and see things? Quinlan Voss had that power, and I don't remember if I'd seen Ahsoka do it. No, actually, I don't believe. I think Quinlan and then Cal Kestis are the only ones we've seen that actually does the Force echo. Right? Do you know what you remember?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm still stuck on Ahsoka Jonah.
Ahsoka Jonah.
Because she did go in the belly of a whale.
Yeah, she did. She absolutely
Sorry,
did.
I'm still on that. Yes, Force Echo. I think Cal and Quinn are the only ones that we know of.
Yeah, it's the only one I know. Only ones I know of.
So I'm trying to rack my brain on books and stuff, but I can't think of anything else. Yeah, I think just them.
Yeah. And then he says, I thought we might see the heroes catch a ride on a Purgle, not in one's mouth, though. The whole ship, too. What a great ending. 50% of the Soj budget, but money well spent. I did agree with y'all. I didn't feel like this changed as much as it was hyped to. But that did not mean it wasn't fantastic. I mean, Captain Teva mentioned Senator Organa. That was Wizard. That's it for this week. Thanks for answering my questions and reading my comments. Thanks for all you two do. Till next time. Awesome, you. Darth S&M. Yes, thank you. All right, there you go. That was part 5 of Ahsoka.
Yeah. Time for part 6.
Time for part 6. Part 6 will be tonight if you're listening to this on the day that it comes out. We'll be back to, if you're on Patreon, go to our Patreon page shortly after. I think it will be a little later on the reaction on this week's, but it'll be up that night as we react to part 6 of Ahsoka. And then, of course, we'll be inside the Force again later this week. So, yeah. That will do it. Thanks, Hannah.
Thanks, Dave.
As always, thank you, everybody. We appreciate all the support, all the subscriptions, and listening on the podcast, wherever you can find us on the podcast feeds. And then, of course, on Patreon, everybody that supports us there, we really, really appreciate it. Go enjoy some more Ahsoka. We only got 3 more episodes left. Cannot wait, because I don't know what's coming after that. Who knows when we're getting Star Wars after that?
I'm now.
I am more... Hannah. I'm down to, just so you know, I'm down to the last 20 minutes of Thrawn Ascendancy.
The first book?
The first book, yes. So we can talk about that and some more Beyond the Sagas. So look for those as we do those over the next few weeks. All right. See everybody later this week. Take care. May the Force be with you.